In my opinion, I believe there were two great eras for Hollywood movies that focused on the game of baseball. I'll get to the second one later, but in my opinion, the first one came after World War II, when films about the game weren't as goofy or silly as they were before, but somehow goofier and sillier than they'd ever been. A lot of them shamefully cramming in real-life baseball figures or surgically altering true stories altogether. Take the Babe Ruth story, for example. When the real Sultan of SWAT was dying in 1948, the film starring Oscar-nominated William Bendix was fast-tracked into production to ensure it would be out before Ruth left this earth. The movie was released just 3 weeks before the babe died, and although reviews seem more mixed on first watch, a lot of reviews that are more modern have dubbed it one of the worst movies ever made. I actually might do a video on that one, but for now, I want to talk about a film that came out just a few years later that was actually an inspiration for one of my favorite childhood movies. Angels in the Outfield was a 1994 Disney-produced dramedy that was part of the unofficial Kids Invade Major League Baseball trilogy of the early 90s, and that was a remake of the 1951 black and white comedy of the same name, this one produced by Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. In the original, the Pittsburgh Pirates are at the center of spiritual support, and in the remake, the California Angels, oh, I get it, are helped out. Having watched both films, I wanted to sit back and compare the two, explaining how each is laid out and how they stack up for their respective releases. And if you haven't guessed already, there will be spoilers ahead. So if you want to see the films before I discuss them, I suggest you do that now and then come back to this video later. The premises for both movies are actually pretty similar. Angels come to Earth and support a struggling baseball team and their curmudgeon manager, while an orphan child has the ability to see angels and communicate their existence to said manager. There's a caretaker, a washed-up pitcher, a female reporter. Okay, maybe not everything's the same. It's a plot that may seem far out of left field, but if you weren't on board when you first heard that angels exist on Earth, you weren't taking the first step on the train to begin. And to be fair, even the great films like Field of Dreams use the spiritual to support their story. They just do it more seriously and convincingly. However, despite having similar storylines and results, the two films take different approaches to how they carry their events out. The biggest difference is that the original allows the manager to be witness to the angels, or angel, I should say, while the orphan sees them. However, in the remake, only the kid can see, hear, and, I guess, taste the angels.
Oh, please, don't drink, please. No.
Yeah, I still don't know what that was. Anyways, while the original opts for tearjerker sappiness, the remake is sweeter and makes you feel good while trying to distract you from all the stupid stuff going on in the back. It's also a comedy made more for kids, with jokes steering for the young and some decent jokes for the older.
I thought the game started at 1.
It does start at 1, and you're a jackass.
No, I'm a pitcher.
I honestly think between the two, the remake succeeds in producing a goofy, enlightening comedy, while the original doesn't make you feel as sad or prone to cry, save for this moment, which the little girl nails.
What's your name?
Bridget White, 8 years old.
How long have you been here?
8 years.
However, I'd actually say the MGM one structures its story for suspense and stake raising better than the Disney version. Near the ends of both films, each manager gets busted for believing in angels helping their team, although the original opts to bring in the commissioner, who's totally not Kennesaw Mountain Landis, to solve the problem. The Pirates manager, Guffey McGovern, cracks and slugs the a-hole broadcaster for going too far during the investigation. This leads to the head angel, who's been conversing with McGovern the whole film, telling the skipper that the angels aren't helping him anymore because he broke the deal that he'd shape up in exchange for help. You also find out that night before the game that the washed hurler Saul Hellman is going to die soon and is unexpectedly picked to pitch the pennant-deciding game. In the remake, however, the press conference scene shows the Angels manager George Knox isn't as involved in the story as you'd think. Sure, he's in the film for a good majority, but he's only learning the necessary lessons via Roger and JP. On top of that, we only find out that washed hurler Mel Clark is pitching his last game before joining God's team during the contest.
I smoked for years. It's always a mistake. He's got 6 months left. He doesn't know anything's wrong yet.
I guess the later scenes with Knox and Clark on the mound and them celebrating after the win kind of mends the two's relationship, but it doesn't feel as complete. Ironically, I think the remake starts out with a tighter story, with Roger praying for the Angels to win the pennant so he can reunite with his father, while the original has Bridget White
8 years old.
praying to the Archangel Gabriel because she's a Pirates fan, I guess. So, the story's edge I'd mostly give to the original, but the remake does improve on other factors. For one, the cast and performances. Don't get me wrong, the original has talented actors. Paul Douglas, Donna Corcoran, Keenan Wynn, and everyone else is solid, even if you like to make fun of that 50s pre-Brando style of acting.
I got a mission in life now, Guffey. I'm gonna run you out of this town. Maybe right out of organized baseball.
There's one behind every player.
Oh, no!
But the remake includes talent like Danny Glover, Brenda Fricker, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Tony Danza, Christopher Lloyd, J.O. Sanders, young Adrian Brody, young Matthew McConaughey. The original does get the star power nod, though. Janet Leigh, in one of her earliest roles, plays the reporter Jennifer Page, who initially doesn't know much about the game, but gets very involved with the story as it's carried out. She's actually my favorite performance in the film, and it's easy to see why she went on to work with great filmmakers like Orson Welles, Alfred Hitchcock, and John Carpenter. The remake, however, gets a big nod to the gameplay scenes. While the original used a lot of real-life players, including actual Pirates Hall of Famer Ralph Kiner, the play doesn't grab your attention as well. The scenes are a little choppy and shockingly silent with no score to fall back on. That's likely because there wasn't a higher standard back then to filming the play of baseball. Filmmakers were figuring it out as they went along. I'd say later films like The Natural really gave people a template to making the game look cinematic and beautiful to watch, and even though it's mostly actors on the field, its fast pace and nice shots get you involved. Speaking of shots, there's a nice callback in the remake where Christopher Lloyd plays Take Me Out to the Ball Game in a similar look that Harry Ruby was in during the original. Ruby, along with Joe DiMaggio, Ty Cobb, and Bing Crosby, who owned part of the Pirates in real life at the time, appear in the original, while the remake's biggest cameo, I'd say, was real-life manager Tony La Russa, who managed the Chicago White Sox before moving on to World Series success in Oakland and St. Louis. Fun fact, like the movie Major League, the last opposing batter for the game was actually a real Major League player. In Major League, it was Cy Young Award-winning pitcher Pete Vukovich batting for the Yankees. But in Angels, the White Sox bat Carney Lansford, a real-life Major League third baseman who actually played the first 3 seasons of his career with the California Angels. There actually was an athlete who acted in the original, although he wasn't a baseball player. Bruce Bennett, who plays the washed pitcher Sal Hellman, was actually a real-life college football player and silver medalist in the shot put at the Olympics. With all that information out there, it really comes down to preference. In my honest opinion, I enjoy both films, but I know I'm biased. I saw the remake first and have seen the remake dozens of times since I used to have a little VCR TV in my bedroom, watching the tape every single night. So even though I'll say I'll give the edge to the Disney version, I would recommend MGM's original. It's a film that I think would suit an older audience, but if you're a young baseball fan, I could see you enjoying this one as well. I hope what I've talked about with you guys today will steer you into watching both films, but if not, that's just as well.